Happy Tuesday morning. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. This was the spoiler review that was supposed to happen last night, but I was not feeling well at all and just didn't think I could make it through 10 minutes, let alone a half hour to an hour of giving you a spoiler review. Plus, it gives you guys who will watch this in replay enough time to go ahead and see the movie before you see this review. And so this is it. Last Wednesday, I saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. A couple days before the rest of the city got to see it. And as I had given in my other reviews and things like that, I gave it a solid grade. The only things I had an issue with was the thing that I feared going into Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was borne out in the actual film. Um, the movie was more of a tribute and to Chadwick Boseman, which once again I have no issues with, but it hurt the movie. I've said it over again. You guys can go back and listen to my words on this. Is that there are 1,000 different places to mourn the dead. There are 1,000 different places to pay respect for the dearly departed. A fictional movie with a preordained history is just not one of those. And I tried to put that out of my head as I tried to enjoy the movie, but they made it part of the movie. They made it a fabric of the movie. And one of the things that really held me back as far as giving anything higher than like a 7.5 or an 8 is purely by the fact that you had a character like Namor. Every time you saw him on the screen, he rose in stature and rose to the occasion, and there was no one else to meet him. And I think that really hurt the movie. And you clearly see why the character of T'Challa needed to be in that movie, because everyone else that they tried to use to fill the void, while they tried and did so admirably, they just didn't meet it. The movie needed T'Challa. So let me answer these questions real quick. William, a lot of people are criticizing Wakanda Forever for making Neymar look weak by losing the chair. No, Wakanda Forever made Neymar look strategically smart, impetuous at first, but then and what I saw is that he as the movie went on, especially after the attack on Wakanda and the flooding of Wakanda, that he started to gain a better understanding of his situation, their situation, and what was going to be coming for both of them. And when you hear him say at the end, when Namor comes up to him and says, "I would have fought with you forever by your side, and it kills me to see you kneel to the Wakandan woman," and he just looked at her and said, "Hey, the surface world is going to come from Wakanda," and that's the part he learned, and he realized that they're coming for them, and they have no allies. And his words were, when they come from Wakanda, she's all alone. She'll need an ally, and she'll come to us. He knows that his power and leverage, as far as getting an ally he started out the movie wanting, will be a lot stronger when they have nowhere else to go. I actually love Namor in this. The two best things about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever were Angela Bassett's performance and his. Not just his performance, it's the way that they made him look, the way the history. I remember a lot of the criticism that was going into it once they saw that they were going with an Aztec set, / Mayan historic thing, was that it wasn't like the historic thing, but it fit what they were doing here, and I thought it was perfect. So. So let's see before I go into the if you see the difference between you and regular movie going fans, as you're looking from a military perspective, he's leaning going as a military leader. You know what, another point of view that I'm looking at it for, and when he said that to Namora at the end, it reminded me of The Godfather. It reminded me how Don Vito Corleone and Michael Corleone maneuvered and reacted during especially the first two movies, basically playing the long game. I mean, if you look at the original Godfather, they strategized to make themselves look weak so that they could bring their enemies to the front, and then they hit them. Here, he's basically playing the path where he has now learned that Wakanda, the rest of the world is coming after Wakanda. They're coming after vibranium. They're coming after the technology, and he'll need them. So that basically built a future relationship with him. And like I said, I actually like that. It just made him, there's some things I did not enjoy that they did with him. Like I said, I mean, when he outright basically commits murder by attacking those people, I mean, that wasn't thinking the long game. However, towards the end there, I understood everything he was doing. And like I said, if you've ever watched any good mob movie, especially The Godfather, that's what I felt. So the movie basically opens up with the opening titles, the usual opening titles, where they show you all the superheroes. It's sort of like that, but it's basically all it's Chadwick Boseman, and it's honoring Chadwick Boseman. Had they had stopped there, I think the movie would have been stronger, and done it at the end, I think the movie would have been even stronger after that. However, it goes right into Shuri and the labs and there's chaos everywhere, and you can hear the AI, and they're trying to replicate the purple heart herb in order to heal, T'Challa, who's dying from a very, an unknown, what is an off-screen unknown ailment. And it's chaos, and finally Shuri dismisses everybody in the room to where she's trying to replicate this, and then finally Queen Mamanda comes in, and basically, they look at each other and you can tell that he's passed, and her words were, your brother is with the ancestors now. And then he's dead. It fast forwards a year later to where these unknown government agencies, but it's definitely American because they're CIA, and they did confirm that they are Navy SEALs, are using this device to try to find vibranium. They've been, at this point, the year that T'Challa has been dead, and since they have gone public with Wakanda's resources, they have been looking all over the world for a substitute, because she has refused to give it to him because it can be used for a lot of different things and weapons of mass destruction. So she says no. So they go all over the place looking for it. They finally start getting signs of it underwater. Now, as these underwater crews are using their machine, they're going down there and they're finding, they finally find signs of it. That's when they pretty much get attacked by these blue people who we now know are Atlanteans. And, they just get all wasted. And there's a siren that they use out that makes it, it's like a, it's like the old Odyssey, siren where they set it out and it's a not effect, and all their men start walking over the side of the ships and just jumping in the water. And they attack. The people running their organization get into a helicopter, and they look like they're going to get away. And that is when, for the very first time in the movie, not in shadows, but it's him because he's the only one of them that can fly. He basically snatches the helicopter out of the air and tosses it into the ocean. And it is starting to be put around in intelligence circles that, the Wakandans did this, to keep people from finding vibranium, but then it doesn't make any sense. Then you go to this scene, which I think is, if Angela Bassett does win the award, it starts with this scene. It's a United Nations scene where they're basically pressuring her, and her entrance to this is great. They're pressuring her to honor their agreements of T'Challa to basically open up society and share resources. And she says no for the reasons I gave before. Then this is all happening at the same time they're showing these scenes. They're showing an attack scene, another attack scene, which is a different group. I think I might have got out of place, attacking one of the Wakandan outposts. And they are looking for vibranium. They're outright saying it. And there's another group of mercenaries. These are hired mercenaries. And, one of the people on the council's hired them. They don't ever tell you exactly who, but she says she has the proof and she gives it to them. But while you're watching her testify and give, which is a very powerful performance, these guys are trying to raid this Wakanda outpost. Unfortunately for them, the people that they're raiding end up being the Dalai Lama, and Okoye and her girls beat the hell out of them. They beat the hell out of them without killing one of them, not killing anybody. And at the end of this United Nations meeting, she has the Dalai Lodge bring those people in, as captives, and with the proof that who sent them, and then she gives them a warning: if you guys come after Wakanda, it's going to be an act of war. And by the way, good luck finding vibranium anywhere else, because as far as she knows, vibranium is only in Wakanda. But we find out later on in the movie that is not the case. That the meteorite that caused the creation of vibranium didn't just land on land; that it landed in the ocean as well. We'll get to that, but let me go ahead and say hi to some of the people that are in here again. I'll compare Namor to either Norman Schwarzkopf or Ulysses S. Grant in terms of what he was doing strategy-wise during the movie. Like I said, those are good ones, but also compare him to, like I said, Michael Corleone or Vito Corleone. Hey, man from down under, how you doing? I wish I could get the copyright strike, pulled off and play Men at Work whenever I see you. You'd have your own interest music. A lot of people are saying that's also kind of like weird that T'Challa told his mother about his son, but didn't tell his sister. Does that prove that the relationship is not close as it was assumed to be? No. I just think it's bad to me, and this is one of the knocks I have with the movie. That didn't make any sense to me. That he would not raise his own sons in the proud traditions that he was raised in. I just thought that was a little, that was, to me, that was just them trying to come up with a reason to put another T'Challa in the movie for maybe a future Black Panther. I don't think that was an original plan, and that's one of the many instances in this movie that if Chadwick Boseman hadn't died, that kid's not in the movie. That's my opinion. Were you surprised that they revealed that Valentina and Everett were married at one point, or do you think possibility that she's a Skrull? Possibly. They really didn't have as big a purpose as I thought. That's another knock as I had in the movie. I love his character, and I love the actor that plays him, but he had very little. And all they were doing is setting up either Armor Wars, Ironheart, or the Skrull, which is mine. I had no real issue to it, but I'm like, yeah. And it didn't make a lot of sense that he would, that he would be that dominant to kind of fall for that, but he did. And her character, I hope that they add more dimension to her character, because her character has she's not just that way that you see her, and that you see her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. There's things that lead up to her. It's a much more complex character. I mean, she just comes off kind of like one-dimensional. But, they were specifically there to set up future events that go beyond Wakanda Forever. So I think that is possibly in Secret Invasion, possibly in Armor Wars, or possibly in Ironheart. Not sure, but they were definitely there for other things more than they were for Wakanda Forever. Dang, it's still Wakanda talk. I feel like that movie came out 2 weeks ago. Nah, it does. This was because I didn't get a chance to do a spoiler-free discussion about it, because yesterday I wasn't feeling well, and the other days most of the people hadn't seen it yet, so I didn't want to be spoiling it yet. So. But even though that's the crux of the conversation, if you have other questions, I'll answer them. Fourth. Inevitable. Gee, I wonder what you're talking about. Can't see the other chats. Depends on where you're watching me at. Hold on for a second. You should be able to see him. I'm broadcasting in both areas. StreamYard's goofy lately, guys. The last couple of days, it's been weird. It hasn't been sending out notifications and stuff, and I'm finding I'm getting messages from people saying, "Hey, I wish I'd known you were on last night. I would have watched live." And then because they're not getting it, even though I'm doing everything the same that I've been doing this whole time, so hopefully it works itself out. But where were we? Okay, so they're at this point, it's more of it's Queen Ramonda and Shuri kind of dealing with the grief again. And like I said, this movie goes back to grief over and over again. One of the things I thought stunted its momentum But when they're talking on the beach, and they're just going over the future of Wakanda, how they feel and how she deals with death, and then they're going over a ceremonial situation where, and they had a funeral for him. I'm just jumping all over the place because there's certain parts of the movie that just stuck out for me, and that's where I'm going. There was a funeral, and they show him. They have this casket, and they have the Black Panther logo on the casket, and he's lifted up into the ship. It's kind of a beautiful ceremony, and they have these ceremonial robes that just afterwards. There's a ceremonial ritual that you're supposed to burn those robes as a way of saying, paying tribute and saying a final goodbye to your loved one. And Shuri doesn't want to do it. She's angry. She wants to, as she sees those, you want to see those garments burn. I want to see the world burn because she's bitter. I didn't think the bitterness that was Shuri fit the other iterations of her. It just, I understand people grieve in different ways. It just didn't, the way they did it here just didn't seem right for me. But as they're doing it, it's just Shuri, it's just her sitting on the beach with Wakanda, and then here comes Namor, and this is where you see him in full for the first time. In full, it's nighttime, but it's lit enough to where he comes and sees her, and he basically says, "Hey, because they know you have vibranium, they're looking for it everywhere, and we've been compromised. You compromised us. We need the scientists that designed that machine that they're using to hunt vibranium." So, and he gives her a shell saying, "We need you guys to find her, bring her to us, blow into the shell, leave it in the water, and I'll be there soon after." But, he obviously, at this point, he wants to kill her. He wants to, eliminate any way that, he doesn't realize it's a child at this time, and that's who Ironheart is. Ironheart is the one who builds the machine. She's at MIT, but she's building it for a science project, and the government co-opts it and basically uses it to find vibranium. So it ends up being Shuri and Okoye going to MIT to get Riri Williams. There's a whole fight ensues because now the government wants her, the government finds her, the Atlanteans find her at the same time, and that's where the fight between Atuma and everybody else and Okoye, and Shuri ends up getting kidnapped. Actually, not kidnapped. She basically demands the Atlanteans take her to the leader, and they do. And they go to, they go to Atlantis, and everybody thinks she's dead, and then Riri's with them. So, and you basically, that's where Martin comes in, his character comes in, but I just didn't think his character just added much to it other than, a detective element to it. Let me quick here. So, a friend of mine who based in Mexico said because of the military, he watched it, and he said the reactions from the people when they saw Namor for the first time on screen were palpable. In a good way or a bad way? Because when I saw Namor for the first time, I thought it was cool. When I saw him fly later on in the film, I thought it was even better. Okay, yeah, when I go to both channels, Fourth, on my channel and Inashi's channel, I see all the chats. So hopefully, that's just okay, cool. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, dude, I've been having all kinds of all right, so since this is a full spoiler discussion, I am going to discuss with you how Namor has his power. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up the classic Namor that is from the comics, the one that was in existence for pretty much 80 years till now. All right, and add stream. All right, so here's your classic Namor. All right, Namor. Actual full name is Namor McKenzie. This is to show you how different they wavered from the source material, and in most ways, I think they nailed it. All right, the hybrid mutant son, had that Immerd in there where it wasn't. Hybrid mutant son of Atlantean and human Prince Namor the Submariner is alternately loved and hated by Earth's surface population, often depending on his actions. That was accurate, and as Atlantean royalty who defends his homeland fiercely, Namor has a massive chip on his shoulder, threaten Atlantis, and expect a full-scale invasion. Get on Namor's good side though, and he's a strong-willed champion of the downtrodden. Namor is not one to be homebound though. He is a member of the Avengers, the Defenders, and X-Men, and has even formed his own pragmatist villainous team called the Cabal when human morality got in his way. Whoever he works with, Namor is above all his own man. He has strong ideas about how the world should be and massive armies that listen to his every word. Namar's enemies and allies know very well not to cross the Submariner. They never call him that, though. I hope when they do his movies, they call him the Submariner because I actually love that name for him. The story of Namor. This is the comic book story of Namor. I'm reading this so that we can kind of like go over Namar's origin because his powers derive differently in this movie than they do in the comics. Story of Namor begins when his human father explorer Leonard Mackenzie uses explosive charges in the process of discovery that inadvertently causes damage to Atlantis. This gains the attention of the Atlantean princess Finn, who sneaks aboard the vessel and investigates the potential enemy. An unlikely friendship begins instead, and eventually Mackenzie and Finn fall in love with one another and are married. Though they are separated soon after, Finn gives birth to their son, Namor. Namar's name means avenging son in Atlantean, and he certainly lives up to it. As a young prince of Atlantis, his mutant power of flight. Well, okay, yeah, we're not gonna go into the bullshit that has become, but his mutant power of flight manifests during his youth. As a young prince, Namor joins with the Lady Dorma and Atuma, the Chasm people, and with their landing allies, the Swift Tide set out on a mission to retrieve a powerful magical relic, the Unforgotten Stone. Though they, when they find it, it releases a dark eldritch enemy. So this is a lot of his beginning. So, and like I said, when I first started collecting comics, there was no mention of mutant at ever until, like I said, 1990. But his powers are basically what you saw in the movies. Namor is so his powers and abilities, obviously flight. Now, when you're looking, whenever you look at Namor in the comics, he's flying like literally, like I said before, he's a jet air. He's flying like he can compete with jet aircraft, which is not the case. It is more accurate the way he's doing it in the movies, the way he's kind of hopping around in the air and going straight for short bursts of time, because the way his wings are on his feet, he would not be able to balance himself fast enough or long enough to go that fast. This is a picture of the current. This is the way the Submariner looks now. So if you were to pick up like that comic I showed you guys the other night, that's what he looks like right now. That's the way he's drawn now. He's had other incarnations where he's wearing leather jackets and everything else. Now, if you going back to the movie, his powers in the movie are gained because a shaman finds the vibranium, and what was the process they used? I mean, all right, so let's see. He goes through a process to where he changed it into something that his whole tribe can drink, and he's saying, hey, I'm from the god of the beneath, and you drink this and you'll become immortal, you'll become we're going to give you powers. They don't realize that at that time that means that they're going to give up their life on the land. Now I forgot, hold on. Let me find out because I have my notes. Let's see. Where's my notes? He basically because here, okay. His mother takes it and she's pregnant. And it causes him to be born a mutant. That's how they explain it in the movie, because she's pregnant with him and he is born with those powers. They take it and they ingest it and they basically are transformed into some things that can breathe underwater and are going to live hundreds of years, but they need breathing apparatus to come on the earth. There's and they basically create this kingdom from down below, but it takes a different effect on him because he's born with them. He's born with the power, so he's able to, since he was in her womb as they transitioned from being able to, Homo sapiens breathing on water to Homo moranis, he's basically in between. And he can basically now come up above. He can fly. He can do all kinds of things that they cannot do. And that's how they explain his mutantism there. Had they had done that, years and years and years ago and just co-opted it that way, it would have been a lot more believable. But than just telling me, oh, he's got wings on his feet, he's a mutant. Ugh. So Namar's no, to answer your question, his continuity is not consistent because they're using vibranium here, and the vibranium in the ocean that Shaman found as a binding factor to the Wakandans, whereas the original Namor, there was no vibranium. His powers originally before 1990 came about because as a hybrid between between humankind and Homo moranis. Even if you look up the Wikipedia the definition of him or the actual Marvel definition of him, it reads as hybrid mutant, which is like jumbo shrimp. The two are not the same. They cannot be put in the same sentence. The reason being is a hybrid. In order to determine that something is a hybrid, you have to have multiple examples, which means it's not a mutation. They're not a mutant in the terms that Marvel had described them. There's no random effect there. Like me and Dave had gone over and over with, if a donkey and a horse is always going to create a mule, correct? If we do that over and over again, it's always going to be a mule. The characteristics that the mule has, that's not a mutant. That is a hybrid with. But for the purposes of their story, that's how they used the uranium, not uranium, they'd be dead, the vibranium as a binding effect to tell the story of both the Wakandans and the Atlanteans. And I thought it was pretty cool. I thought they did all right. Okay. Does it do that? I thought it gives us both comments from both, since I'm streaming from the same source. Hold on. So I'm on my page, and I think the comments should be identical. Let me see. Hold on. All right. Well, it doesn't matter. You guys I can see all your comments here in the StreamYard, so we'll go from there. All right. So yeah, that's how his powers came across. All right. Kind of understand why Nakia and T'Challa didn't raise their son on Wakanda, because they didn't want him to deal with the political pressure after his father passed away. But the way, well, they had made that pact before he got ill, though, because he's like 5 or 6 years old. So they basically conceived of him after or during the last movie, which would, if you consider with the blip and everything else, he should be about 6 or 7 maybe. So, before he was ill, he had committed, to that. Like I said, though, my only thing is I get the feeling that wouldn't be the case if Chadwick Boseman were still there. And like I said, that's one of the things that I could see the tracks of them changing their story for that. That was one of the things that brought it down for me. All right, so let's see. Okay, cool. So I think you should be able to see me on both channels. Oh, dude, don't get me going. I hate that. I'm sorry, Fourth. I hated when they did that. When they did that, that was when they were transitioning from what was a very cool thing. The Sci-Fi Channel had become. They had revolutionized Friday nights again and made Friday night must-see TV for geeks. We had Doctor Who, Stargate Atlantis, and in some cases you had the Lex on earlier incarnations. You had the Lex, you had Farscape, and they were the ones doing that. And when they went through that brand thing where they changed up everything and started to call themselves sci-fi, I really wanted to rip out the short hair that I had at the time. And I hated that. I'm like, oh no, I will never. Oh no, like that. That's like chalk on a nails on a chalk. Yeah. William Tolkien felt inspired by Zack Snyder's Atlantis and Justice League. I didn't see that. I mean, it was dark and grainy because they were both underwater. I really got the feel, even underwater, what that it got. Oh shit. I saw Mayan all over the place. And whereas what I loved about Aquaman is it was completely over the top. I mean, completely over the top. I mean, you had the octopus playing the drums. You had all kinds of crazy things. Whereas the Tolkien felt more like a village that you would visit today. And the only difference is that they're underwater. And I thought it was a cool effect that when they were underwater, they weren't blue. At least I didn't. I may be missing something with the color grading. I didn't see them as being blue. I saw them as just being normal human beings while they were underwater. And the only difference is that they were underwater. So I thought that was a cool touch that they added.
Drying up again.
My goodness, I'm like the Atlanteans. I'm drying up and losing power. All right. Hey, well, okay, yeah. I no. Aquaman's. I prefer Tolkien over Aquaman's futuristic, colorful Atlantis. I thought that the Atlantis that was in Aquaman fit Aquaman, and I thought that Tolkien fit what they were trying to tell you there. I don't think one, for me personally, I don't think one was better than the other. I just think they both fit for what they were doing, which each director was doing. Anthony Mazzano, because there was going to be a lot of political evil after T'Challa passed away in Wakanda, and they felt that he might. Yeah, I would agree, Anthony, if they had made that decision as he got ill. But they never saw that kid. So he was born and was being raised in secret even before the illness. This is what I'm gathering. And it wasn't towards the end and until they found that out. So like I said, my only thing is, would you have done that? Would you have done that if he had not passed away? No, he said it was okay. We're going to when we first see Namor. No, he said it was a great reaction because he said a lot of the kids and their parents that lived around went to the movie. Yeah, I mean, it was a good representation. It was a real good representation of Namor. I prefer Namor over Aquaman. He's more of an anti-hero. I got, like I said, I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and for different reasons, I love both of them. Like I said, I've always been able to distinguish the two characters growing up. I know one is a copy of the other, but I love the way that they've gone in separate directions altogether. I mean, Namor has developed into something completely different than Aquaman was. And in this movie, it just, they've just gone a completely different direction. Actually, technically, both of them have. If you look at the historical Aquaman, he's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, surfer dude type deal, and has been basically played on live action now by a Pacific Islander. I mean, and which is, I have no problem with that. Namor has been, basically, for the most part, white guy, pointed ears, things like that, and now he's being portrayed in an Aztec/Mayan way, and I think it fits. I think as they try to make these stories move in motion, that they should make changes that fit, and those changes fit for me. So, nah. The reason why I'm saying that, Marcus, is there's no reason. If they wanted to call it Atlantis, they could have. They made a decision not to because of the fact that it didn't line up with his heritage, and it was already in Atlantis, a very successful Atlantis, and Marvel doesn't like to follow anybody. Yeah, she drank that vibranium potion that guy made, that shaman made, and she was the only one that was pregnant. So that's how they explain his powers. And I know, and I was 100% okay with that. Well, I kind of wish they used another element that they could have created specifically for Tall-Con instead of. Well, I think their decision here and what they're going for in some of these societies is to have a binding product. It's like if you ever read Marvel's The Ultimates, everything that is created in the Ultimates is because they're trying to replicate the super soldier serum. Every superhuman thing, everything that they have in the Ultimates, in the Ultimate Universe, is pretty much been brought about because they're trying to replicate the Captain America serum, and they have all kinds of various effects. So in that story, they use it as the binding thing that binds all these things together. So I know why they did it. I'm okay with it because, like I said, and it helped. That's one of the things that helped the story because it meant everything to both people. The vibranium is what they built their weapons on. It's what they built their society on. It's what gave Namor his powers. And with the Wakandans, it means the same thing. I mean, it literally means the same thing. So you have these two mirror societies, one above and one below, that are bound by this element. So I actually thought that was kind of pretty cool that they had done that. And that's one of the things one of the elements that I didn't think they changed at all because of the death of Chadwick Boseman. I could find elements in this film that I knew that you could feel that were there prior to him dying, and other ones that they just totally rearranged. And so the ones that I feel that they did not change are the ones I enjoyed the most, and that was one of them. Can we assume mutants come from cosmic source? Sorry, totally screwed that up. Can we assume mutants will come from cosmic sources like Wanda or Miss Marvel? Not necessarily. I don't know. To be honest with you, not necessarily though. They could obviously retcon him because most when mutant kind was first brought about, remember these were bifactors of the Cold War, and mutant radiation and mutagenic effects on things. Everybody was afraid of that. And that was, for the most part, in the era that preceded the X-Men, the science fiction 50s era, the Cold War era that we did on another stream a couple months ago. It was those types of things that were used as entertainment. Mutants, children of the atom, they were brought about because mankind's, association with radiation. Decades later, they could come up with a different way. They could come up and say that vibranium affected things. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that you could reintroduce mutants into the to modern era. I really don't expect them to use my classic understanding of mutants to introduce them into what is a modern era, because we're not dealing with the 50s and 60s. We're not in the Cold War anymore. We're not living, with the doomsday clock, with the threat of nuclear annihilation. So the type of stories that they told to bring mutants about in the 60s and 70s and 80s are not the same things that they could probably use now. So I'm very interested. I don't have a clear answer for you right now, Mighty X, but I'm interested to see what they do come up with. Yeah, I got you, Matt. All right, William. Anthony, I don't get why it's that a lot of comic fans are very split with Aquaman and Namor. Well, because one is a blatant copy of the other. They even admit it. I mean, Aquaman is one of the very few things that DC copied from Marvel. For the most part, it was been the other way around. I mean, the Avengers were their answer to Justice League. I mean, vice versa, and all those things. But the comparisons are there. I mean, they're there because it's a literal copy. King of Atlantis, Prince of Atlantis, inheriting the throne. A person, of split parentage, one human, one Atlantean. One can live. They can both live on the surface world and below. They, both join superhero teams. But that is where the split happens, because whereas Aquaman, even though he has a conflict in Atlantis, he is immediately loyal to the surface world. Arthur Curry is as much the way they wrote him as more of a human anyway. Namor, the way Namar's always been written, he has been written as an Atlantean first. He does not embrace his human side the same way that Arthur Curry does. And when you're first, and that's what makes him an anti-hero, because when you first see him, there is no real conflict. He is the ruler of Atlantis. He is the sovereign of Atlantis, and his people are 100% behind him. And they wrote his story as the surface people are evil pieces of garbage, sort of like they did in Aquaman. But Aquaman, as soon as he comes out of the water, he's like, "Hey, let's join the Justice League." A situation like that. Whereas Namor, he did his own thing. He was Atlantis first, and the persona of the characters as the years go on drifted and drifted and drifted to where you didn't have to write Namor as a hero if you didn't want him to be that way. Whereas Aquaman was always the hero, always aligned with some of the oldest superheroes in the world. Namor floated in and out. His loyalties changed. He's been part of groups that have been villainous. He's been part of the Illuminati. So I could see where the origins of the characters would cause that type of collision. But if you're a geek and you read the stuff, they've been written differently and portrayed differently for decades now. But fans will never, they see a guy that lives on both land and water, a half Atlantean, half human, they're going to see the parallels. And to make those parallels go away, you just got to read or jump into the source material, and you immediately see that they're two different individuals. Because it gives Namor a lot of respect because he has a lot less compunction for killing people and remorse. They don't respect Arthur because he has more. Well, remember though, like I just said, Arthur Curry comes about and is immediately put beside heroes like Green Lantern and Superman that have a moral code. The first thing he sees when he comes out of Earth, for the most part, is the Justice League. He sees Superman. He develops his moral code alongside them. Namor does not. Namor comes out. Namor is much older. Namor comes out, and he has already formed his opinion about mankind. It's all about their encounters with mankind too. Arthur Curry's was much different than Atlantis. I mean, the societies that they come from too. Yeah, Aquaman's Atlanteans, they do have military structure, but Namor is literally that military structure. He's the general. When you see him, you see them. Whereas Aquaman was a little bit different. And just different origins of the character. And like I said, I think the split and the fact that he kills with less compunction, he comes from a much more militaristic society, and much more upbringing than I think Arthur Curry does. So like I said, even in the movie, you see him. He's a little boy, and he sees the people that he comes from being enslaved and being treated that way, and that changes him as well. Whereas Aquaman didn't have that, So I think that's why. That's just my opinion. Marcus Cruz, William, watch Comics Explain video on Atlantis. He basically said Talokan is a subset of Atlantis, and that they are many kingdoms of culture. That's fine, but I bet you, Marcus, this is just me, that they will never mention the word Atlantis. But they don't need to. That what you say could be 100% true, but in my opinion, that is their pathway away from using the word Atlantis and eliminating at least using that word. Obviously, we're going to have the comparisons are there. They've been there for 80 years. But it's a lot different when you're integrating into your motion picture universe. If you don't want to do it, they've given you a pathway away from using that. I will, like I said, I'll buy you dinner if they're using Atlantis, if they ever use Atlantis in the MCU. And by the way, remember the definition. If you watch the movie, remember they built that society after they became one with the water. Whereas the ancient Atlantis myth is that the city was sunk, that the society was sunk and that they became out. But when you see this movie, it's the society, the beings that come first, and the building of the society that comes after. So there's a difference right there, because when you're talking about the great catalysm, they didn't really cover that in the movie. I'm not saying that the great catalysm doesn't happen in Marvel Comics universe. They just didn't cover it. They just basically show you a society that lives on land and gains the ability to breathe underwater, and thus builds a kingdom subsequent to that. So right there, they can do it. That gives them a lot of space, is what I'm saying. William, I hope you get the 90s X-Men aesthetic in the X-Men. The fashion choices were iconic, and it's a chance for the night. Listen, Marcus, I'm sorry. I don't want the 90s to shine again. Sorry. The only thing I want out of the 90s is the music. The alternative scene from 1993 to 1998 is the best 5 years of music I've ever lived in my life. But as far as everything else from the 90s, nah. Especially comics, you got to realize it was not a good time for comics, and a lot of that stuff that they did in the 90s didn't help sell books. It actually helped, shit can some books, especially the X-Men. Okay, so no 90s X-Men. All right, Aztec Aguilar. Sorry to say, but X-Men under Disney will be. Jeez, what do you really mean, Aztec? Don't even care if Feige's in charge. All right, so every time I hear about a major iconic franchise or name going into Marvel Comics universe, I get a little bit cringe, simply because I think that when you have these kind of stories like this, you risk taking away the individuality of these characters and their upbringing that make them special. On the one hand, I enjoy the shared universe, don't get me wrong, but on the other hand, I don't want the Spider-Man effect. I don't want characters that had individual characteristics and story arcs and genesis that made them special to be thrown into the big soup to fit a particular narrative, because that's just not how comics was anyway. And yes, I always say we're not writing a comic, we're making a movie, but you wouldn't be introducing these characters if it weren't for the comics and how those characters work together. And if you are going to portray these characters at all, even if it's just a quarter of the way that they are depicted in other places, you are still taking those characters and they may or may not work together. And I think a lot of the times with Marvel MCU, it's masked because of the money. Because they make so much money, a lot of people just give some of the stories a pass. And they're like, oh, it's successful. What do you mean? What are you talking about? You're an idiot. Look, they're making $1 billion a movie. Captain Marvel made $1 billion, and it was a lackluster movie, in my opinion. So it's not always about the money, especially when you're talking about long form storytelling. If you are going to do the X-Men, you got to be very, very careful, because there's a difference between doing the X-Men and then just basically making some other comic book characters. If you can connect what makes them special, then I'm all for it. But I don't want to see them brought in just as an overall piece to tell an overall story, because they were never that. And one of the appeals to the X-Men is that they were outsiders. They were outcast. Yes, they crossed over many times with other things, but they generally got their bones as being their own thing, because the normal, the mainstay superheroes couldn't deal with these outlaws, but that's how they came up. So I'm wondering how they'll do it. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but we also have what I call the Spider-Man effect. Everything that made Spider-Man special as Peter Parker was taken away from him, other than the iconic suit. He looks like Peter Parker. He sounds like Peter Parker would, but Peter Parker would have looked at Iron Man and told him to kick rocks. Peter Parker developed his own webs, his own costumes. Peter Parker was a kid, and that's what made him relatable to everybody, is because he was that lonely, solitary kid, because he couldn't tell people his secret, and he was an outcast. And that's how he came about. It was this kid that had to deal with these big, giant things that were being thrown at him, these crazy people dressing up in goblins costumes and all these other people with superpowers. And this was a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid that was dealing with that all his own. When they take that character and they put him in this entire cluttered Avenger salad, a lot of that those unique qualities go away until No Way Home, where he comes into his own. But how long did that take to happen? So when you say that, I can relate to what you're saying, because there are certain things that make the X-Men what they are, no matter who you are and when you've seen them, and you have to be careful if you're going to use them, or else it's just another superhero human being, and MCU has plenty of those already. So, how you doing, Chappie? Long time no see. Mr. SF Black, Marcus Cruz wasn't Atlantis but an outpost in Expel. So you guys are having a conversation there. How you doing, Elizabeth Villa? All right, I don't follow comics. Which character is considered a copy? It's going to be Aquaman, because Namor was created and it was first published in 1939, and Aquaman first came about in More Fun Comics, which was in two years later, in November 1941. So many people consider Namor to be the copy. Not Namor, I'm sorry, Aquaman. Namor was actually one of the oldest comic book Marvel comic book characters ever. It's him and the Human Torch. They were the first handful of Marvel comics. So he's been around forever. And the Invaders, I mean, he was literally a World War II hero. All right, so would you compare Namor Atlantis in the comics towards a society like Sparta and others, Atlantis society, Athens and Greece? Wow, that's a tough question. I would compare Namar's Atlantis to the pre-conquistador Mayan Aztec. I'm probably screwing up my history because I'm tired. To that era, because when you look at it, that's where a lot of that pride looks like it comes from. I would compare Arthur's Atlantis to more of the Greece, the Poseidon type, the Greek mythology one. If that I hope that sounded right. I'll have to watch it on the replay. Boy, my theory is good because it means we can also get an Asian, African, Middle Eastern Atlantean. Oh, dude, that would be awesome. That would be great. I see where you're going. I understood where you're going. I just haven't seen any evidence of that yet in the movie that I saw. But damn, that would be kind of cool. Cool to have a black Atlantean, man. Oh, no. Representation. Woo-hoo. But that would be awesome because, yeah, technically, and they also they explain in the movie that he's been around a lot longer than the one in the comics has. He's talking like the conversations I watched him talk about in Wakanda Forever. They've been around for 300-400 years, possibly minimum. And that Namor, because of his hybridness, can actually outlive the normal Atlantean. So by the time we see them in Wakanda Forever from his origin story, they don't really give you. I don't think they give you a timestamp or an idea of actually when he becomes, when he's born, because you're right. They could have spent the interim times in between, not only just building Atlanteans as society, but sending those Atlanteans out to all over the oceans and all over the seas and everything, and you could come up with a couple of different types of Atlanteans. Maybe that, that's something that I would like to see them hit on in the in his solo movie. Please give me a solo Namor movie, Marvel, if you're watching. That's one character that I definitely need to see. And then because I think that it would be hard for him to be cluttered up in the normal universe, the way they introduce him. I really need to see a Namor, and it needs to be called Namor the Submariner. Just do it. Okay, so to answer that's a good point, Marcus. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, where's my mouse? Mighty Rax. Great time for independent comics. Yeah, it is. It is. I'm gonna on my main channel, the Sci-Fi Center. I'm going to start highlighting. It's one of the things that we're going to do. I know I've been telling you guys this is coming, but I'm actually getting ready for it. So independent comics, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the mid '80s Judge Dredd, so some of the stuff that came about that really made it to where, the pre-Image era. All right, I'm also worried about Blade under Disney. So am I. You have reason to be worried about Blade under Disney. Hell, Mahershala Ali has two-time Academy Award winner, has reason to be worried about canceling things 6 weeks before you're supposed to shoot. So yeah. One of the things, like I said, I am a proponent of the shared universe, but sometimes you got to work extra hard to make certain characters fit, which means you have to have a proper original script to do it with. Everything has to work in tandem, and it doesn't look like they're been able to do that yet, which is something that's kind of unusual, for them. William, you don't want to see Jubilee wearing her pink glasses with the pink bubble gum or a lollipop with the disgusting. No. X-Men in the 90s stopped existing in 1995. After Age of Apocalypse in the 90s, I struggle to find X-Men stories and I got them all. I wasn't just a guy selling them. I was reading. I grew up an X-Men fan. Like we said in our other specials, I grew up reading Chris Claremont's X-Men. That was only X-Men for me. I grew up with Mark Silvestri's X-Men. I mean, Jim Lee's run. I have Jim Lee's first issue that he did. I have Gambit's first appearance. But once we get out of the Age of Apocalypse, which is one of the greatest miniseries of all time, it starts to fade. And then we have that cartoon. They were looking for direction, and like I said, I think comics in the mid to late 90s was the most directionless 5 years in all of comicdom. That's the area where Marvel almost went bankrupt, and DC wasn't doing much better. They were backed by a conglomerate, so you didn't see it. But yeah, no, leave the 90s in the 90s. We're good. All right, Mr. I hope that doesn't mean San Francisco, and I hope you're not a Giants fan. Just kidding. I'd say Namor has more in common with Orm's origin than Arthur's. Yeah, the militaristic points of view. Yeah, it's just their, one being the rightful heir, and because Orm was not the rightful heir, it was Arthur. But I see where you're going with that. Marcus, William, do you think X-Men will be race bend, or do you think it's going to be Rogue? William, okay, I don't know if that's what you meant to write. William, do you think the X-Men will be race bend, and do you think it's going to be Rogue and Gambit? I don't know. I think a lot of people's desires are to see the X-Men as they saw them in that goofy cartoon, or the ones that they saw in the Fox movies. I don't know if Marvel's going to do it that way. I would love to see the first X-Men, the first incarnation of X-Men, and then have them generationally grow into the characters that we knew. But our mixture of both, because when you see a lot of the stuff in the X-Men, it's not, Wolverine was not an X-Men that soon, and even in the movies, Wolverine wasn't an X-Men until literally 13 years after the book premiered. He became an X-Men and X-Men Giant Size X-Men #1, but they move things around to tell their story. So you might see X-Men, you might see a founding team of X-Men with X-Men in it that did not even exist at the time of their founding, which is fine. If they do it right and they tell a good story, I'm down for it. But I don't know. I mean, Rogue is a very popular character. Storm is a very popular character. Even though those characters come much, much later in the X-Men mythos, I could see them using Rogue, Gambit, and Storm, and Wolverine's going to be tough. I'm thinking they might hold off on Wolverine because you're going to still have people that will not be able to let go of Hugh Jackman. So it's going to be interesting to see what the decision they came on that one. But all those other characters, I'd be all right. Oh, Elizabeth, how do you say your name? Because I see the accent, man. Villafania. Okay. I have a customer here in Vegas that with that same name, I think. Is that you? If you're not, if not, it's not you. I think I have a customer because her name comes up on my movie list. Is that you? No, if it's not you, say so. But if I mess her name up too. So, all right, this movie was the first time I saw indigenous attire worn at movie theaters. Yeah, I saw some people sent me pictures of that. That was cool. because I saw the same thing when Black Panther came out and the first bit, and people were wearing the African garb. I mean, not just like in the 90s where everybody was wearing it for, just fashion. They wore the real regalia. They did a dance out in the lobby, an African culture dance out in the lobby. Everybody was in on it. This stuff means stuff to people. That's why I was always for recast T'Challa, because the Black Panther period, T'Challa, the character period, means so much to people. And granted, you didn't get any shortage of representation in this film, but what you got, you like I said, there was a hole in this movie, and I think not only did it hurt the movie, in my opinion, it hurt Namor, because each time you saw Namor, he was ascending to a different level of respectability in the movie, and he needed to counter. He needed T'Challa there, and him not being there, I thought really took a lot of the wind out of myself. But yeah, I've seen some of the pictures of people showing up in the attire, the necklaces, and everything else, and that's just cool. To me, that's the type of inclusion that really, really is cool. Yeah, I would love a Neymar movie. I wanted a Neymar movie. I was thinking I was going to want one coming into this, but seeing him and seeing his demeanor, seeing his portrayal, I definitely have to have one now. Man, I don't see how some of these guys go 5, 6, 7 hours. I can barely go an hour without drying out. I'm gonna have to find some magic elixir or something to keep my vocal cords going. I always thought people were pussies when they're like, guys, you got to take a break because my vocal cords, I got to go get water and all that. And I'm like, oh, you pussy, come on, tough it out. Now I'm like, oh shit, start squeaking. Anthony Mazzano, my rough estimate on how old Neymar's is 500 to 600 years old because of the flashback you see is during the 1500 because you see Conquistador. Yeah, that was my guess too. That's my guess too. Yeah, and that's right. Those guys were Spaniards. So yeah, that I thought was cool because when you read the comics, he's not going back that far. He's born in like 1913, something like that, in the comics. I thought that was brilliant. And the original interpretation that I read, I know there's different interpretations now because that's what you do. But yeah, in the original interpretation, in his original bio, he is born in 1913. But I really love, not only is he much older, but he's ingrained into that entire history. So he's there, Cortez, he's there when he sees that society that he grew up with being destroyed and being colonized. He's there for that. And that's a lot of the difference between where Arthur Curry and Namor split in cinematically now, because you see this indigenous race being conquered, enslaved, and being treated. So his hatred for the surface world comes from when he saw as a boy. So his compunction of killing them is not there because he's seen what they can do. He's seen, he doesn't give two shits about these guys. So yeah, I love that scene, by the way. I love that scene. I love what they did there because you could feel it. You could feel that little boy's hatred. All right, Aztec Aguilar, off topic. Okay. But how now that the old W regime is gone, woohoo, maybe it's time Gunn and Saffron bring back Guillermo del Toro for his Justice League Dark film. He teased a figure on his Twitter. I would love to see Guillermo del Toro doing DC content. I'm not quite sure it would be Justice League Dark. I think they might have him do the individual characters that may eventually make up to that. But I don't know if that would go against their mandate of getting the big dogs out first. And we don't know who's going to direct that. But if you told me Del Toro was going to direct something in DC's universe, I would love it. He's one of my favorite directors. I like his style. I like the way he approached comic book movies when he was doing them, when he was doing Hellboy. I love the way he approaches I think the way, no matter what Guillermo del Toro is doing, there's a horror element to it. Shape of Water, it's a romance, but there's horror, old school Norse sci-fi element to it, and I would love to see that added to DC. That would be something different that no one else is doing, especially a major company. So I don't know if it'll be Justice League Black, but I do not be surprised to see Guillermo del Toro, because I think him and James Gunn are on par as far as the way they think. Or Trigon the Demon. Yeah, down the line, Trigon would be a good one. How you doing, Drago? Another one from down under. Raimi Batfleck. This movie is not good for long term. T'Challa is a core character for the Avengers Secret War comics. Well did Infinity Gauntlet to fight Doctor Doom, who has beyond her powers. All right, so that just popped in my head. No, they wouldn't do that. What if they because they would have shown him dying, I guess. If the Black Panther that we knew was a scroll and he dies and then they bring in a real one, that would probably piss a lot of people off. But it all depends on at what point they realize that they need to recast him. Kevin Feige said it was too soon, but I didn't hear anything in his interview that said never. So there's always, especially when they're doing all this multiverse nonsense, there's always a way that as a consolidation of all these multiverses, that the history could be rewritten, or T'Challa from another universe could be merged with this one, and all kinds of things like that. And so by the time you get to Secret Wars, maybe they may be able to, and all the other stuff like Will did Infinity Gauntlet to fight Doctor Doom, and Infinity Gauntlet, that stuff is pretty much done with. But as far as like, he needs to be back, and he really needed to be in this movie. But what you're saying is kind of like what I'm saying. To me, there was just a hole in the movie without him in it. Force 1000 just in the Avengers universe and start. I don't think they'll end the universe. I think they'll, and who knows? I just don't know how they're going to incorporate the X-Men, or how long they're going to. It's probably going to be a 6-year. We're probably a lot longer away from the X-Men than people really think. I think we're 5 to 6 years away from an actual X-Men movie. I think between now and then you'll see mutants bought in, and eventually you'll have the basis for what the X-Men will become. I do think that at some point with Kang and all the versions of Kang and Mortis and the one who remains, they're all the same guy. I think you're going to see a Mortis at some point, and Mortis and Rama Tut, which is another version of Kang. I think that at the end of either Ant-Man, Quantumania, or something really soon around that, you're going to see him escaping a battle just as he's about to lose, and he's going to go back 5,000 years because he knows Apocalypse is there, and he's going to go back, and just how they did it in the comics. Rama Tut goes back to basically take control of Apocalypse, who's the first mutant and the only mutant at that time. And that's how he gets a lot of that technology. That's the Celestials get involved. So I think that you're going to see mutants, in my opinion, this is just a guess, mutants introduced because Rama Tut goes back and finds Apocalypse. And I think you're going to see a proper Apocalypse. And I think that throughout the next 6 years, they're going to start bringing in the thread that connects, the mutants, like Wanda's a mutant and all the other ones are a mutant, and Namor is a mutant. But they'll start introducing characters, but I don't think you're going to see an X-Men movie until the end of all that. So that's just my opinion based on how they've done things. But I don't think you're going to see an X-Men movie for quite a while. And that may be what they base their fantasy. But remember, you got the Fantastic Four too. And you can do a lot with the Fantastic Four. Remember back when Marvel Comics first began, a lot of it went through the Fantastic Four. A lot of characters, a lot of derivative characters came through Fantastic Four because it was X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. So you could build a universe not just necessarily based on just 4 characters, but the things that, think of how many characters were introduced through Fantastic Four: Galactus, I mean, Kang. I know Kang was in Avengers, but there's Silver Surfer. I mean, there's so many characters that made their first appearances or made their critical appearances in Fast Action 4 that you could really have a universe that goes around them. Honestly, I think they might have Storm be around the same age as Nakia and T'Challa's son. He's going to be the one that I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't know. Okay, I'll read his comment. Honestly, I think they might have Storm be around the same age as Nakia and T'Challa's son, and he's going to be the one that I don't know. I don't know how what T'Challa's son. I haven't gotten to that part yet. But yeah, what he brings up is towards the end of the movie, Shuri, she fights Namor and basically beats the hell out of him, and because they basically um use devices to drain the moisture and the water out of them, and without that's where their power is. And she drags him to a desert island where he can't get to any water, and she rips his little wings off his feet too. So I thought that was vicious. And she's about to kill him, and she says, "Yield now, and we will be the protector of your people." And you know, die. Or, I forgot her exact words, but she basically gave him an option of, "We'll protect we'll protect the Atlanteans. We'll protect you from the Telecons, and we'll be your protector, or else you can die here." And it was basically kind of like he accepts, but that was, as we were talking about, that was part of his long game. All right, Ben9, thank you for showing up. Who do you think had the bigger challenge to make a new script, Christopher Nolan after Heath Ledger died, or Ryan Coogler after Chadwick Boseman died? All right, I would say Ryan Coogler, but that was self-inflicted. Ryan Coogler had his script in hand. The original script that Ryan Coogler had, he could have stuck with. He made that hard on himself because he felt that was the way he needed to pay respect to Chadwick Boseman. Whereas with Heath Ledger, what you guys got to realize though, with Heath Ledger, as great as his character was in The Dark Knight, as great as he was in The Dark Knight, he wasn't the title character of the franchise. All right. Now, if you're talking about if something had happened to Christian Bale, that might have been a lot harder. But I think it was easier for Nolan because there was no expectation. Heath Ledger died before the movie was even released, so there was no expectations of Heath Ledger being in a third movie. Whereas the main character of the franchise, there always is going to be an expectation for that character to be in all of those movies. No matter who is the villain in the Batman movie, you know that there's one constant: the Batman. The Joker not being in that movie, it all depends on how further along Christopher Nolan was with that character. But like I said, it would never be as hard as what Coogler decided to do, because his was the character. It's called Black Panther. All right, T'Challa is the Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman played the Black Panther. He played the most important character in the role. Everything about the script would have revolved around him, whereas that's not the case with Heath Ledger's Joker. So I would go ahead and say that Chadwick Boseman or Ryan Coogler had a harder task, but once again, it's one he chose to partake in or chose to undertake. He did not have to do that. I think he could have made it easier by taking some time. If you needed to take more time, hell, everything else is getting mixed up in the MCU. So it's been 2 years, over 2 years since Chadwick Boseman died. So it's not like we're doing it immediately afterwards. So I don't know when they started filming this movie, but like I said, I never agreed with the decision to incorporate Chadwick Boseman's death in this movie, and it is just reinforced when I see the movie. Marcus, here we go. Marcus 4000, I want 90s X-Men, not 2000, 1960, 1980s, but dude, no. They got the cartoon that adopts that nonsense. You can have that. Don't give me 80s. I mean, give me the 80s is the best era of X-Men, by the way. Raimi Batfleck, they need to bring a variant T'Challa from another multiverse in Secret Wars. T'Challa is part of the Illuminati, which Doctor Strange had a chance to to the recast. Yeah, they can do that. Plus, Namor is part of that Illuminati too. So hint, hint. Yes, it is you. Okay, yeah. Hi. It's always cool when one of my customers jumps into the chat. I didn't. Yeah. So yeah, and yes, it's me. It's pronounced Via Fenya. Okay. Oh wow, I was adding both L's in there, but at least I spell it right when I put you on the movies list. All right, Marcus Cruz. I'm open. I feel Avengers are dull and over with. Just focus on the X-Men. I agree with them being dull and over with. I am ready for them to focus on just about anything else but the Avengers. But here's the thing, though. The Avengers is now just a name. It's a name that they're going to put on the story. I'm all for the Kang Dynasty because I think that is going to involve other factors that are not just the Avengers that are going to allow other things to sprout from. Like I said, there's a theoretical way that you could have the X-Men and mutant kind come from Kang because of his one of his alter egos goes back and cultivates the very first mutant. So there's the Avengers. I don't think the Avengers is being used as they were in the previous phases to where everything revolved around them. I think they're going to be a launching pad for a lot of different things and a landing pad for a lot of different. I don't think they're going to be like the Avengers in name like they were before because basically there is no Avengers right now. So. Oh no. Why do X-Men 97 if you want to camp? Oh no, Marcus. I'm sorry, man. I'm on board with a lot. You know how I feel about the 90s X-Men. Can't do it. Oh, you think it's possible to make a PG-13 film? Having yeah, easily. The same way you made a PG-13 The Batman that had no business being rated PG. He's crushing people's skulls, beating the hell out. The violence in the Batman is intense. And the reason why I got away with a PG-13 is because they don't show blood. Now, Blade is a vampire movie, but there's ways to do it where they don't show a bunch of blood. The original Blade was very graphic. It was very graphic, but if you read the comic Blade, it's not that graphic. There's not a lot of blood in Blade. If you're comparing it to Wesley Snipes' Blade, then yeah, that's an R-rated movie. But if you're comparing it to the concept of Blade, there doesn't have to be a lot of blood in the movie. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do to mask a lot of that. There's a lot of violence too that you can take out too. Like, when you're seeing in Venom, Let There Be Carnage, where he just about tears off a guy's head, bites off a guy's head, but they don't show it. So there's a lot of ways you can do violence and intensity without necessarily making it an R movie. It doesn't need to be an R movie. The Wesley Snipes version needed to be R movie because it was graphic violence. But the new Blade, they're not going to do an R-rated movie. They're going to fit them within their universe. So they'll find a way to make it PG-13. But there's a lot of ways to do that. Get one of those hats with the drink holders attached to the sides, portable Civica. Yeah, man, it's like lately I just been, I think it's because I'm streaming a lot more too. It used to just be me on Fridays, and then from Fridays I went to doing overnight one on Saturdays, and then now we're doing some specials. Now I'm doing my own channel stuff, so I think I'm just running my mouth too much. I think I have to limit myself. Like right now, we've been on the air for an hour and 20 minutes. We'll probably go about 10 minutes. And basically those 10 minutes are basically going to be up for you guys to ask me any spoiler questions that you want to ask me about this movie, and I will answer them having seen the movie. So let me go into. All right, so Marcus Cruz. How old are you, Marcus? When were you collecting? Because I'm okay with you loving the 90s, but I think I want to turn you on to some stuff and have you read it and then come back to me. In order for me to respond to that, I would need to know what you had read. Now, if you've read everything and you've made that determination that the 90s I had the best stories, and that's a matter of opinion. That's yours to have. However, if you haven't read the mid 80s X-Men, dude, let me look at our old some of our old streams that we did about Chris Claremont's X-Men. and we give you a reading list of where to go, or I could tell you where to go. But if you've read those and you're coming to that opinion, that's just you have every right to that opinion. But I would hope that you're reading the Chris Claremont run all the way through, not the early night, but all the way through. Just let me know if that's the case. I'm just curious. Yeah, it was kind of dark. Just watched Top Gun finally. At first, I wanted McQuarrie and Joseph Kosinski to direct Man of Steel 2, not anymore. They're too big for cartoon movies. I'd rather see what they want to do. Yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? That's I think if they could adapt. All right. Oh, now and Be Nice fourth. Yeah, so he's 500 years old, so that puts him perfectly in that era. So I love that idea. I got a problem with this. I'm not real big on superheroes kids being when it comes to T'Challa. The only reason why you would be doing that is because of Chadwick Boseman's death. Had that been a natural progression in their story, then yeah, I still be like, oh geez, come on, because I don't like Superboy or Superman, the current Superman, son of Kal. I don't like that. All right. I mean, if that's what I have, that's what I have. But I would rather, I wouldn't have written a son into the story at all. To me, that's just a workaround for recasting him. That's a workaround for making the tough decision that you should have made already. But that's just me. Elizabeth, maybe they'll pass it back. Yeah. But here's another problem with Shuri. She's totally out of character. Shuri is a fun-loving genius. Adding that grief to her took that away. Turning her into a warrior took everything that made her special about the first one. They, and I know that they do it in the comic, but it's very brief. And they do it as part of a much longer storyline that is not brought about by this. But because this is brought about as a mechanism of grieving for people, that is the way she's portrayed. It's not portrayed in the comics like they portrayed it in the movie. She's angry. She's bitter. She's not the fun-loving, happy genius that she was, that lives for science. She's not a warrior. She hasn't been. Yeah, she ends up taking the herb because they do find a way to replicate the heart-shaped herb for her, or she does it for herself. And the way they do it is because of Namor is covered in it. All the jewelry that you see Namor wearing, it's all made out of vibranium. And he has a bracelet that he gives to Shuri because he gives her a tour of Atlantis, and they're basically trying to, it seems like there could be a chance at peace, and she gives her as a token that has the vibranium in it, and she uses that as a way to replicate the herb, and that's how she becomes Black Panther. But she's not a trained warrior, and it's more not in the sense that T'Challa. It just didn't fit. And I hope that they don't do that. I don't mind. This movie does not lack female representation. Her in it as just a regular fun-loving scientist, kid sister, was representation. The Queen was awesome representation. Okoye was her usual great self in this, and so I don't think they need to do that. Once again, had they had done that as the actual story that they were going to tell prior to Chadwick Boseman dying, I would have had no problem with it. But it's not. This is them usurping what they really meant to do to something that they think that they had to do out of respect. And like I said, movies are not memorials, in my opinion. Documentaries are. Tributes are. This is a fictional character, fictional story. Will be played by other people for the next 50, 60 years, I don't think you should have deterred the storyline. But you know what? I'll have to take a wait and see. William, I've been oversaturated with 80s stuff and the legacy sequels, reboots. Time for the 90s to shine again. No, Marcus. Let me save you from the 90s. You gotta no reboots. I'm telling you to go read the original stuff. Go pick up a trade paperback of X-Men, graphic novel. God Loves, Man Kills. Go pick up the Mutant Massacre. Go pick up Inferno. Go pick up the Shi'ar storyline that took place in X-Men 275, 276, 272 area right there. That's where Jim Lee was getting his foothold on his legendary run. So there's a lot of stuff. Some of that takes place in the 90s, but it's early 90s. 93, I think, like I said, once you watch Fatal Attraction was great. But once you get beyond, once you start getting past the effects of Age of Apocalypse, it just really starts getting painful. It was painful to sell and it was painful to read. So it is intended. It isn't implied that Shuri uses her diplomatic whatever to make it so she can go back. That kick-ass car she got in there. So it's implied that she if you listen to her at the end when they're saying goodbye, that she has made it so that she can go back to school. William, did they ever reveal at what point in the movie that M'Baku and Shuri, where he tells her that if you kill Namor, you're going to cause the eternal war? I didn't see that. Because remember, I only remember where he says we got to kill a fish man. I think they cut that out. I don't recall seeing that. Perhaps it will be either to recast Bale's Batman, since we have seen different actors in it, whereas Chadwick was the first to portray it. All right, so the thing is that everything that these guys do is for the story. The story is above everything. The story is above people's personal feelings. The story is paramount to people's grieving. The story is what guides all directors and screenplay writers and actors and cameramen and cinematographers to do things at a certain level and head in a certain direction. You had the story already there. You do for the story. You don't do for the individual, whether he's here on Earth or as he's passed away. This movie wasn't for Chadwick Boseman. This movie is not about Chadwick Boseman. It is about T'Challa. Chadwick Boseman is, like everybody else, is an instrument to tell that story, and he did a great job. But the story wasn't about him. Whatever happened into his life is not the story of the Black Panther. The Black Panther is the story of T'Challa. Whether it was the only first person to play him or not, it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be someone else to play him. All right. And every different Black Panther you see on the screen, it's always going to come back to what story are you telling? And what they did here is they put things ahead of the story that should never be put in between the story and its completion. People die. All right. It is fans, every fan that's sitting in that audience has probably dealt with some type of grief and loss. And they all know that the world does not stop. People do. The world keeps going. So the basis of their decision making, to me, was flawed. Because everybody works in a place where people get old, they pass away, something happens, COVID, we had a lot of people going away. Work continued. Life continued. Here we were telling a fictional story. You stopped your fictional story to insert real life tragedy, and you compromised your story. Whether he was the first one or the 10th one, story is the story. And I was, and you see the effects of it when you see the movie. You see the holes in the story. You see them trying to patch together a story and cover for their main character not being there. And I thought it actually hurt all of the characters, even though Angela Bassett gives what I hope is an Academy Award nominated performance. Her character is hurt by it. Shuri's character is definitely hurt by it. But Namor is would have been a benefactor of having an equal, having the king there with him, eye to eye, the way that they designed the story to be. So, yeah, Chadwick was the first person to play it, but and if it were a character like somebody brought up Paul Walker and a place like that, characters like that are not generational legacy characters that don't exist on other platforms. So when you're telling me, okay, so if Vin Diesel's character were to be gone, yeah, that would end that because that character was built around that actor. When they produce these movies, certain movies get produced with that actor in mind. That character is designed and created to fit like a glove around that actor. Black Panther was designed before Chadwick Boseman was even alive. Chadwick Boseman transformed himself to fit the character. The character does not transform itself to fit him. The character is the story, and the story is paramount. And I thought that the only, it really made it hard for me to give this other than a really, really, really good movie. And it's the main reason why I can never put it in the same category as the original Black Panther. And I thought it had the potential to exceed it, but it's missing that one thing. And we all know what that was. So I understand where you're coming from a little bit, but as somebody who grew up reading these things and with the way Marvel does things, Marvel has always put their story first, nothing else. Story first. They've changed directors out. They've changed actors out. They've changed people out, and there are people who sometimes avoid Marvel because they don't want to be involved in that overall story. And that's what Marvel has always put first. So they would rather wait and get the people that they fit, are willing to do what their story means than get some big name director sometimes. And so this flies in the face of that. Well, if you're willing to tell other people, no, you can't be our director, you can't be our writer unless you're willing to come in and play, and be a part of our story and help our story move along. But we're going to put the story on the back seat because someone passed away. I mean, it's to me, it's not a good look. And in this particular case, it took away from the movie. All right. 80s is overplayed these days. 90s is cool era. I might have to time you both out. William, can a werewolf by night and a man thing work as Disney Plus specific? Yeah. I mean, they did. That special was great. They could make movies out of them though. I mean, there's enough there to make a movie out of them, but I enjoyed the special. Like I said, I love Disney Plus's stuff. I know a lot of people are, have too much complaints that they're not putting enough on the big screen. And, but here's the thing though, after the first two phases of Marvel, I'm not in a rush to go see every single MCU movie. And with Disney Plus available, I'll wait that 45-day window if I think I should have waited for Thor: Love and Thunder. But I saw it, as part of a promotion, so I went. If it hadn't been for us promoting Thor: Love and Thunder, that's Disney Plus material, baby. All right. Who damn, I'm starting to lose my starting to fade, guys, so I got about 4 or 5 more minutes. Who would be the big main black male character in MCU? Falcon, War Machine, Wonder Man, or Nick Fury? All right, probably Nick Fury. Nick Fury is prominent in just about every Marvel story. The rest of these characters are not top tier characters. War Machine is a derivative character of Iron Man. Falcon is a derivative character of Captain America. Even though he is Captain America now, it's pretty much with full understanding that Captain America would come back and it wouldn't be Sam Wilson. Wonder Man is literally a B character in an Avengers comic. Right now, I would just name value in history would be Nick Fury, but like I said, I would have to see the script first to be able to get to that for you. Or Blade. No, not Blade. Blade is too down. Blade is one of those connecting characters, but I don't know if he'd be I guess I'm asking what do you mean by big as far as like our Iron Man level big to where the story is revolved around them, or just big as in having a big individual movie? If you can clarify that, I could probably give you a better answer. Oh no, see Marcus, you're going down a path I can't follow. All right, Black Panther 2, fun. Thank you for coming. Black Panther 2 would have been much better if the creators recasted T'Challa. That way, we get to see Black Panther versus Namor like in the comics. Those fights would have been epic. Not only that, but the philosophical jousting between the two was what I think was missing. I just didn't think there was anybody in that movie that was could go toe to toe with him on that equal footing, and that really took away from the movie for me. By the way, Villain, I'm not mad at you. I just disagree, but I understand. Listen, yours is the opinion that won out. That's what you and Ryan Coogler are on the same page. I just found it unfortunate. So, how would you feel if M'Baku takes a Black Panther mantle at the end? He's going to take over Wakanda. For a little while, I wouldn't mind it, but he's not T'Challa. It would be like if somebody temporarily took over, for Neymar. It's just you know that Neymar's coming back, and another I'll take it as a stopgap, but I gotta have T'Challa back. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I hope they take their time with Wolverine. Once again, the biggest problem as I have with MCU is there's just a rush to put so many things in it, and like I said, it's that gross salad that you make out of all the just whatever you can find in your refrigerator. That doesn't mean it's going to taste good. Just because you put everything in the same bowl doesn't mean. And them bringing him in a Captain America 4, it's going to be. I don't know if they'll do that with still one more Logan appearance coming out of Deadpool before then. So. What are your opinions on the Michaela Cole character she play? Who is? I'm drawing a blank. Who is Michaela Cole, guys? I feel like I'm going to be a fool for not knowing this. Michaela Cole actor. I should know this. He was in. All right, you're gonna have to refresh my memory, Marcus. Or I'm sorry, is that Marcus? No, Anthony. Refresh my memory. I'm getting tired. I should know who that is, probably. Don't pass the mantle to the kids. Kids never live up to this. Yeah, that's a tough one. Grief does things to people. She becomes Black Panther because she's part of a character development. Shuri will likely go back to her roots in that journey, and that's how they do it in the comics. They did it that way. And like I said, if there would have been a story arc that he naturally was going to do, because there was not supposed to be grief in this movie. He totally changed his script to fit a real life situation. So, like I said, if that's what would have happened as a natural result of his original story, no problem at all. I just think it's a bad precedent to. I'm going to a movie to be entertained. I'm not going to a movie to grieve. I'm sorry, guys. So, is the story more about T'Challa and Black Panther? The story is about T'Challa. The story is about T'Challa. Yeah, you can branch out, and other people have held the mantle. And like I said just before in the previous comment, if that is what he originally intended to do, I would have had no issues with that. But that is not what this story was pretty much put together as a plan B that did not need to happen. That was a choice he made. All right, William, doesn't that feel like false advertising though, the way they put that scene? They do that all the time, though. Dude, they do that all the time. And a lot of time they'll have trailers rolling and then they'll cut and edit. They'll be cutting and editing things right up to the day the movie, hits preview screen. So not really. I just, dude, there's a ton of of instances where I've seen things in trailers that didn't end up in the movie. Avengers Endgame has the Hulk running, and he ain't even in the movie, or one of those movies. Well, I think Gauntlet or Infinity War, where he's running through the movie and he's not in the movie like that. So it's like, not too bad. Marvel Rubik film. William, I'm 19 years old, and I first collected the 91 comics until 95 comics. You can make 9 movies out of those 91. Yeah, well, you have Fatal Attraction in there. You have the Failings Covenant in there. You definitely could. But you would have to establish the X-Men first. Because remember, all of those stories that took place in that era were done with established X-Men. So you first have to establish the X-Men first and how you're going to bring them in. And since I don't know how they're going to bring them in yet, then I can't really. But that like I said, the 94, the 95, you had the Failings Covenant that gave you Generation X. You had Age of Apocalypse in there. You had Fatal Attractions in there, and that story with the Shi'ar Empire, with the one that Jim Lee and Chris Claremont did, he's in there. So that was a good pack, but it started to fade after that. But if you were going to tell those storylines, no problem. You just have to have a developed crew of X-Men. Those stories, the heart of those stories existed on the history of the X-Men, so you'd have to be real careful telling them. I like black male-like characters, spearheading MCU, maybe leading though. Yeah, I mean it's time. Oh, that was fine. I mean, not a standout, but performance, but I thought was all right. Yeah, she was the one with the knives, right? That she had the blades that she wasn't supposed to bring. I thought they were gonna kill her. I was like, "Ooh, wow, another one, another Dahmer Lodge. You're giving some personality to, because are you guys gonna kill her?" Oh, well, yeah, I liked her. I thought she was cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do it like that, like I said, once again, as a natural progression, the story, uh, uh, no, that's probably gonna happen, but no, damn it, oh well. All right, X Factor, X Factor is great. X Factor during the mid late '80s is great. All right, I was disappointed when the Avengers showed up. Oh, okay, so a lot of it will depend on what the relationship was with the Avengers at the time. See, it's hard to tell. They don't give you a lot of outside stuff. So, all right, guys, I've reached that point where I'm losing my voice. We've covered a lot of the pinpoint spoiler issues. We told you the way it ends. We told you how Namor, or gone over how Namar's powers come about, what happens, all the meaningful stuff. We covered all the meaningful stuff that happened in the movie. I don't think we're missing too much. I told you who um, yeah, I really want to see him. I don't care who he joins after a solo movie, but I need to see a solo movie. And a lot of the stuff that you guys have been asking me about and that we've talked about that we don't know about yet, that's the time to. I'm there. I'm there for a Namor movie. I am there for a Namor movie. All right, guys. So I think we've covered a lot of the stuff. We've covered the historical references of the original Namor McKenzie versus Namor. We've discussed the difference between his heritage and the way they added to the positives, the way they added to it. The representation is great. The story was great. I give this a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 if we're going on a scale of 10. I gave the last one almost a 9.5. But like I said, it is not the same class of movie the original Black Panther is. It is a really good movie, and you should go see it. But if you're going to compare it to the original Black Panther, people will say, well, it's a sequel. Sequels always do. Not necessarily, especially with comic movies. Sequels do really well as far as progression of stories. This one was a step backward for me. And musical score was great. Cinematography was great. Some of the CGI was kind of goofy, but we were watching it on IMAX. The villain was the anti-hero was great, but once again, it brings us back to that one weak spot is about the protagonist and the antagonist weren't there on the screen. It's for as great as Namor was, it just made you realize just how much T'Challa needed to be in that movie. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have a great week. And thank you for joining. I looked at. I love it with my locals. This airs everywhere. We got people from Australia. We got people from all over the place. I had a guy on here during our overnight, South Africa. I mean, but I always love it when people here in local Las Vegas jump in, because you guys have had a chance to talk with me, on a normal one-on-one basis, and you kind of know where my head is when we're talking about these things, and you've seen the environment I exist in. So it's always kind of cool to have you guys in. So, all right, guys. Thank you for coming along on this spoiler review. And like I said, I will be on and off throughout the week, but no matter what I do during the week, always expect me to be on at some point on Friday. Depending if Enosh is doing a stream, then I'll push mine later. So like last week, he was doing his own stream, so I had to do mine a little bit later because it is his network for that I air most of these on. And then our regularly scheduled one is going to be on roughly around 9:30. Our Sci-Fi Center overnights, or where we just go on and on and on. I mean, we there is no, and I ready my vocal cords for that one, so there won't be any shortness in this one. So, all right, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the Poindexter Round and the Sci-Fi Center. Please join if you haven't already subscribed to my channel. It's youtube.com at the Sci-Fi Center, or you could just go to the sci-fi-center.com, and all of the links to all of our social media are there. And we're going to put a wrap on it. Thank you all.